Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 61 of the Former Action Guys podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Kramer. And this week I have my buddy on, Nick Davison. He and I were motor team mechanics together. He was a reservist, and he's also a law enforcement officer now. So this podcast goes into him being in the reserves, us being mechanics together in Iraq, the shitty deployment we did together. Shitty as in nothing crazy happened. It was just a shitty command. So we get into that. And then he talks about like the goods and bads of being in the reserves. And then if you're interested in law enforcement, he goes through like the hiring process that he went through for the CHP and the department that he's at now. What he did as a K-9 officer and the kind of training that he did there. And then, so we get into a bunch of stuff like that. So I think it's a really good episode, especially for those that are looking at law enforcement as a follow-on career after the military. Please make sure to share this with anyone that you know that may be going that route, because this would be good information for them, especially if they're here in California, because he details that stuff specifically. As always, make sure to check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. My Instagram's at jkramergraphics and at Former Action Guys. Make sure to hit those up. And get up on the YouTube channel and subscribe, man. Help me out. Get out there, subscribe, leave some comments. Tell me what you think about the show. And leave some comments and reviews on Apple Podcasts. We're doing really well. We have 71 straight 5-star reviews, a whole ton of written reviews. If you haven't already, throw me a bone. Jump on there and put in a review on what you think about the show. It really helps us out. So it keeps us in the top 100. So we're in the top 100 for Apple Podcast, documentary podcast. So all right. Enjoy the episode.
Perfect.
Cool, man. Well, welcome to the show.
Right on, dude.
It's been a long time, man. Like, when's the last time we actually talked at all? Like, heard each other's voice? Was it right after Iraq?
Yeah, it had to be like end of 2009.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. It's been a long time. So you and I met. We were both motor team mechanics, and we did the deployment to Iraq with Supply Battalion in 2009 to TQ, and that's how we met. And now you're currently a police officer in the Bay Area. You do work up there. But so I want to start back at the beginning and talk about like why you joined the Marine Corps, why you decided, and you're a reservist also. You were a reservist, right? You're not in anymore, are you?
No. Been out for a long time now.
Yeah, I thought you were. I thought you had gotten out. So what I'd like to talk about for people that may be considering the reserves after they get out, or people that may be considering it right off the bat, some of the pluses and minuses of the reserves. So before we do all that, though, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from originally if you want, and then why you decided to join the Marine Corps.
Yeah, sure, man. My name's Nick. Like Justin said, we met probably end of 2008 when we were getting ready to go to Iraq with 2nd Supply Battalion. I grew up in the Roseville, California area, so about 20 minutes east of Sacramento.
Okay.
Up by Folsom Lake. Spent most of my youth there. Small amount of time in Calaveras County, but not enough to really call it home. Ended up at Granite Bay High School. Me and a group of friends were not really college material at that time, and had always been interested in the military. I think there were 5 of us. 2, me and another, went reserve. 3 others went active duty. For the most part, still friends. Lost one of them, but love you, Dave. So yeah, it was kind of something we'd always talked about doing. When it came to be the age to do it, we decided college definitely wasn't going to happen for any of us. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think a lot of people do that. I think that's a conclusion that people get to the end of high school, and one, they're either like, I'm done being told, like I'm being educated, by educators, or 2, like I'm not mature enough. Like some people are they realize like I'm not ready to go to college. If I do, I'm gonna fuck it away. So they take a gap year or whatever, something like that. So I mean that's something I think a lot of people run into. What made you decide to go reserves rather than active duty? And what year did you join again?
Actually signed paperwork in 2004. So it was my senior year. I wasn't going to turn 18 until I was graduating anyways. So it was, I think, November of 2004 was when me and my buddies started doing it, except for my one buddy who couldn't get his parents to sign off. So he had to wait till January for his birthday.
Yeah.
Reserves, man, I don't know. I guess I was pretty impressionable at the time. I wanted to go active duty with my buddy, the one that ended up, he's the one that passed away now, but he was like the leader of our group. He wanted to go open contract 0311. This is all I want to do. I wanted to go with him, but kind of needed that parental consent at 17 to go. And my dad he was in the Air Force in the 80s. So he was like, look, if it's what you really want to do, that's fine. But I would rather, and started kind of putting influence. And to my recruiter's credit, my recruiter jumped on it with my dad, and they were saying, look, you're a bright kid, join the reserve, go to college, go back, go commission. My original plan at this time was kind of being created to maybe try the PLC program or, just stay in the reserves, finish a degree, go to OCS and try and go to flight school. I kind of had a thing when I was, a dumb little 17, 18-year-old that I could fly a helicopter, and that would be pretty much the coolest thing ever.
It's got to be one of the coolest things ever, right?
I mean, it probably is. So I kind of bought into the idea that was possible. At least early on, I was initially enlisting in 04. About a month before our ship date, I actually tried to go in and change it.
Oh, really?
I was kind of over that idea. I was like, look, I'm not actually going to go to fucking school. At least not this early on.
Yeah.
So I actually tried to go back and change it, and whether it's true or not, I was told I would have to change ship dates and wouldn't get to go to boot camp with my 4 other friends, and was kind of told, oh, you can change it once you get to boot camp. They can take you to admin and you can change your contracts there. And
yeah,
obviously that ain't true.
Yeah. That's how they got me, man. They're like, hey, look, first they told me that I was the same. Well, I told them I wanted to do infantry. I was like, this is all I want to do. And then they're like, we got to get a spot. And it was all the way up until like my ship date. They're like, we're working on it. I'm like, hey man, like I'm leaving tomorrow. What's the word? And a different recruiter than mine answered the phone. So he has no reason to tell me the truth. And he's like, no, you're all good, man. You're all good. Be here tomorrow, 05. We're going to drive down. You're going to ship. And then when I got down to MEPS, they're like, all right, what job do you want to do? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm supposed to do infantry. And they're like, no. They're like, you can do that, but you got to wait 3 more months. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And I just, yeah, they kind of get you like that. Sometimes it sucks. And
I mean,
that's why I see the importance. That's another importance of doing like this podcast, because guys that listen to this that haven't joined yet, because I got some guys that are in high school and stuff that listen to this, that this gives them like real world, like, hey man, the recruiter said this, but that doesn't sound right. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they'll get you, but
yeah. So I'm still friends, not close friends. I still talk to my recruiter actually.
That's cool.
Ended up promoting him a few times and then went Mustang. So I think he's still a captain. I don't know if he's got major yet. So I'm not quick to call him a liar, but I definitely think there was some
recruiting happening. That's what it was.
Some recruiting, because we set some sort of record, because Granite Bay, California does not produce a large number of military recruits. I think 85% of my graduating class was going straight to a 4-year college.
Oh, really? That's a good amount.
It was insane. And I'm pretty sure the 5 of us that joined, none of us even took the SATs or whatever college tests there are. We were pretty much destined for it. So he got a pretty good spread. The reserve guys, he was filling contracts like it was cool. But
yeah.
It is one of those things, if you're giving advice to people looking at going, take a vet with you, or take someone that's, 2 years into their contract, take them with you to the recruiter, man. It'll piss the recruiter off. But I've done it for a couple family members now where they're like, hey, I'm going to go meet with a recruiter. Can you just sit with me? And I'm like, absolutely. Cause
Yeah, for sure.
I've seen it all. One of my really good friends that joined with me joined to do crash fire rescue. And that wasn't even a career field anymore when we were joining.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I think it became a lab move only one, right?
I think it was that. And then it was like rotating to, like more civilian, like more of a civilian job.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So
it was
I
kind of shady for him too.
I totally agree. I kind of take it for granted sometimes that I grew up around, the military in my family and watching military movies and being around military people. I think one of my cousins was married to a Marine when I was a kid, not old enough for me to really remember anything other than like maybe little conversations, but not getting any kind of advice from him. But just having that kind of like background, I kind of knew what I was walking into, and I take it for granted how many people join the military not really knowing what they're walking into and not realizing that, at least on active duty, like the military owns you. You know what I'm saying? Like if they call you, you have to come in. There's no like, or calling in sick. You can't call in sick in the active duty side. You got to go to medical. If you're sick, you go to medical, and then they'll tell you if you're sick enough to go home. And it's and then obviously boot camp, is ridiculous. Where'd you go to boot camp?
San Diego.
Nice. Okay, so
that was
that's right down the
NCRD,
road for
San Diego.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a 45-minute flight.
Yeah. So after boot camp, so you're the first person I've had on that was a mechanic. Like no, I guess I had Chris Harper on. He lab moved to recon on one of the earlier episodes, but we didn't really get into the mechanic stuff. But you knew me like a lot while we were there and deployed and stuff. So it'll be cool to get into some of the mechanics for some of the people compared to what we normally talk about. So after school or after boot camp, you go to MCT, obviously, and then from there you jump over to Camp Johnson, right?
Yeah, that was a shock for me and my West Coast boys.
Yeah. Okay. So you never been on the East Coast before?
I'd been to Boston a few times as a kid to visit family, but I'd never been in the North Carolina.
Yeah. Or were you talking about a shock that there were female Marines there?
that was new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another.
But it was kind of. We had a, not like it wasn't a violent encounter, but it was, where you start seeing for the first time, you're from Paris Island, you're from Hollywood, or, whatever. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's like the only thing. Go ahead.
And say you've seen both, so you know how different Jacksonville is than San Diego.
Oh, for sure. Honestly, man, when I was in North Carolina, when I was stationed out there, I did not want to come to California. I was like, dude, I was like, fuck California. Like, I'm not trying to get involved with like California politics, because all you hear about is how liberal California is. And it's not wrong. Like California taxes are crazy and stuff like that. However, so I'm seeing all that from the outside, having never come here. And, when I got out here, obviously it's way better than I thought. I can go to the beach and the mountain on the same day, which is cool.
Can you hear my dogs barking?
Very little.
Is that coming?
Nah, you're good.
Yeah, those dogs are pissing me off. You want me to go kick them?
No, you're good.
Not literally.
Yeah, look out. Dog. People are gonna have that
He's
clip.
My boy.
People are gonna have that clip on TV. Like, look, see what he said. But yeah, no.
My dog sleeps in bed.
But now, obviously I like it out here. I stayed. I ended up staying at SDSU now. So
I remember talking to you about that. You're not stoked at all to ever come to California if you could spend your whole time on the East Coast. And I was like, you wait until you come to California. And
what are you? Yeah. For what I'm doing, for being I'm a journalism and advertising major. It just makes more sense for me to be here rather than go back home to Indiana. Like once I got out, like out here, there's so many like more places. Well, before COVID-19, there's so many things I could like, network with and stuff like that, or people I can network with. But now we're in this weird world where this is how we live over the internet and stuff. So it is what it is. So what'd you think about Camp Johnson? For those that don't know, because a lot of the guys here I know a lot of my listeners are forward observers and the fire support community, artillery and infantry guys. Camp Johnson, you go there and it's like admin school. There's motor T, like mechanic school. The operators are out at Fort Leonard Wood. But there's a bunch of like schools like that. And I know when I got there, we showed up and we went over to like these old World War II barracks or squad bays in the back. And that was like the holding area. and then you wait until you pick up in class and you move into the barracks there. But what'd you think about like that first time? Like you have a little bit more freedom. You're still in school, but you get liberty and stuff like that. How'd you like Camp Johnson and being in that MOS school?
I was pretty into the whole experience from the start. I thought boot camp was pretty cool. I mean, It sucked here and there, but overall I thought that was cool. I thought MCT was a good time, even though, what do you get, like 6 or 8 hours a week on that Sunday to go fuck around and get food or, chew as much tobacco as you can in 6 hours. So it was like, even as kind of lame as Camp Johnson is, and there's ain't shit to do. At least in 2005, there was like a pretty decent gym. I think CrossFit was kind of coming out, or it was that was the first place I ever saw it. So, we could work out, and they had like an internet cafe because there was no such thing as Wi-Fi, and none of the
you go down to the
none of our room.
Four Corners Pizzeria, grab a slice and then go over to the arcade part or whatever.
You could pay by the minute to use the internet.
Yeah. It's weird talking to people about the internet, like before, and this isn't before the internet, but it was before like people had smartphones, and like what a different world that was, before smartphones and stuff like that.
Yeah. I laugh when we talk about, you go and use the internet and then you'd have to go to the cashier, and I was on computer, 14, and they're okay, you $6 or whatever. And
a lot of foreign countries still have internet cafes set up like that. You can usually find those if you're traveling overseas. Yeah, man. But
I thought the other thing that was cool, and I don't know if any of your younger dudes would sympathize, but I think I was making like $13.60 a month as a PFC in 2005. And that was like the most money I'd ever had. You get out of boot camp and MCT with a bit of change. So we were out on the town getting tattoos and
living high on the hog.
Shit.
What kind of moto tat did you get?
I have just the traditional EGA over the heart.
Nice. Yeah, I never got one.
I kind of kept it at that.
I was one of the weird kids, man. I was at Camp Johnson. I was 22. I was married and had a kid on the way, or I think my kid was actually just born when I was in MOS school. And I never left. I never got out of camis. Like I would stay in camis all day until it was time to go to bed, then change, because I'm like, why am I gonna go? You see everybody get out of class and like change and do all this shit to just go out to Walmart or something and then come back, and it's like you just wasted like $20 to take a cab out there, buy some bullshit, and come back just to go do it. I'm like, fuck that. I'm gonna sit here and can hang out around base, like go to the gym or whatever around base. So I was like one of those guys, and I was since I was 22, everybody was trying to get me to buy alcohol for them, and I'm like, no fucking way, dude, no way. And two of the guys that I would hang out with that would always try to get me to buy alcohol, and I never would. They both of them got kicked out before we left MOS school for alcohol-related incidents, and I'm like, dude, like that's such a, what a way to ruin like. You go back home. I can't imagine, and I know it's off topic a little bit, but you go back home. Imagine going back home and telling your family and friends, like, yeah, I got kicked out. Like, I didn't even make it a year. Like, that would just be, I don't know, that'd be pretty rough. But school, though.
And then the rest of your life.
Yeah, man. Then you gotta think about that, especially once you see how some of your other friends have gone. The guys that you met, and you follow their career on Facebook or whatever, and you see some of the cool shit they get to do or whatever, because even if you're a mechanic like we were, I still got to do a bunch of cool shit as a mechanic. I mean, I could have done way cooler shit had I not been with maintenance battalion, but it is what it is.
Right.
What'd you think about MOS school? Did you feel like it properly prepared you to go into and work on, like, step into a shop and work?
No. I had a benefit that I had come from a small sort of mechanical background. I grew up racing dirt bikes and motorcycles, so I was always taking apart my own stuff. So I had some mechanical inclination, nothing, compared to what we were doing with like a 7-ton, say, or, you know, pulling a engine out of a Humvee. I'd never done anything like that, but I'd had some kind of related experience. So it wasn't a leap for me, but man, for some of the guys in my class, and we spent so much time in the, classroom doing the computer tests and such little amount of time actually out
turning
getting
wrenches.
through a Gen Mech toolbox,
Yeah.
Um,
It seems like school.
no,
It seems like school for me. The biggest thing it taught me was how to read the manuals, and how to look stuff up that I would need. Because I knew like basic stuff, like hey, I could change my own oil, could change my own brake pads, But that was like basic maintenance was like the limit of my ability. But it did teach me to be able to research like what I need to do. Because again, I went in 2006, so not long after you. You couldn't just Google something. It wasn't like I could pull YouTube up and set it next to, like I do now, set it next to my car and watch someone do it as I do it. You had to kind of have
no kidding.
the mechanical inclination to be like, oh, okay, I got to take this off, then that. But it is, it's pretty basic, and it is funny how some of the people there have zero mechanical, they've just never done anything. I remember one of the first days in class, the instructor was like, all right, this is a screwdriver. This is a flat tip screwdriver. Like the differences, he was telling the differences. And a kid was like, oh, and like writing notes. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious right now? It's just shit like that. But I guess you got to teach down to the common, lowest common denominator there.
Yeah.
What was the expectation though? So once you left school and you go back to your unit. So like I said, I was active duty. We go and we just go right into work. It's like an everyday job now. So for you as a reservist, what was that like?
So I was actually still fighting the fight, trying to go active duty. So I want to say we left. Okay, screen went out for a sec. So we left North Carolina, came back to Sacramento where my unit was, the reserve unit I was checking into. And I don't know if it was the next day or the day after, as far as the check-in, I think it was probably the next day, Go home, unpack your crap, and come in, check in. Like I said, man, it was probably like maybe a Monday or a Tuesday. I don't remember, but it wasn't all right. That's your area now. You're going to go over there and work, and that's where you're going to sleep. It was all right. Check in with, supply, check in with, medical, some of the key players inside the unit's command, go meet the CO.
Yeah.
And then go home and, we have all your contact info, and you'll get a call in like a week and a half because we have the next drill weekend coming up, and then you'll come in and you'll see what we're doing.
Yeah. That's so weird. It's like, all right, well, we'll see you in a couple weeks and you'll get to see what it's like. And it's like, okay.
Right. Now, I do remember talking to the master sergeant, checking us in, and I was like, so basically since I've joined, I've been trying to change my contract to active duty. And he was finally the one that was like, well, yeah, they were never going to be able to do that. You have to do X amount percentage of your reserve contract before they'll let you make that change from components. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's actually two completely separate components. And no one had any clue along the line that it was just not possible until down the road to make that change.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the same problem that Matt had, our buddy Matt, because he was a reservist as well that came out. But yeah, he eventually made it to the active side. Did you get it like a full gear issue? Did you get like, because we call it a SIF issue, you get all the pack and flak and all that stuff. You get all that stuff when you check into your reserve unit?
I'm trying to remember what we got that day. I don't remember going home with like an LB full of shit. So I don't think we did that weekend, because there was an amount of gear we had, but I don't think we ever had armor like a flak and Kevlar issued to us. But a lot of the other stuff, because I always remember, as I progressed through the ranks, having some someone, oh, I can't find my this, that, or the other thing that you got to try and,
Yeah.
you know, figure out. But no, our issue was I think it was a much smaller amount of gear issued. You know, we were a motor T unit. We didn't need all that stuff just
Yeah.
sitting at our house. I think that was more of a liability for them.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, even in active duty, I didn't even get a rifle issued to me until I went to the rifle range. And even then, you go shoot, you come back, and you turn the rifle back in, and it's like that. Yeah, I mean, that's how it is at maintenance battalion. That's not how it is in a division unit with like a infantry, artillery, combat arms. You have your rifle assigned to you that you use all the time, and you take it out all the time. But at maintenance battalion, you're just a fucking mechanic that works, 7 in the morning till 5 at night, so you don't need a rifle until you deploy,
Right.
like when we did. So what was it like coming to that first drill? Kind of, you want to explain for us non-reserve people, like what does it mean when you go to drill? Like what was the first one like? How did you have like squads or anything like that? Were you broken down? I know. One thing I will point out is when we were in Iraq together, the relationship between junior Marines and NCOs on the reserve side was way, way more relaxed than it was on an active duty side. So what
I
was that
remember
kind of
that.
dynamic?
That really, that really set the junior NCOs and the senior lances. It is a pretty decent blend. At least it was where we were coming from. Um, but yeah, no, I remember because when we got to North Carolina to link up with you guys, there was a lot of heat between the kind of newly promoted corporals and the lance corporals that were coming in. To everyone's credit, there were some pretty shitty lance corporals coming from the reserve side into our active duty new platoons. But
Yeah.
so yeah, back to the first drill weekend. I didn't know what to expect or what to think. It was, I don't know. It was kind of like a wide-eyed experience. A lot of the guys in the unit, because by then it was '06, but a lot of those guys had, either deployed once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell the difference between the ones who had and hadn't. Probably pretty similar mix to what you see in active duty, where you can see the guys that give a shit about it and like what they do and want to put up a good appearance and
Yeah.
do good, and then the guys that are getting close to getting out don't give a fuck. They just look like shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got their 10%.
And this unit might have been a little more than 10% that didn't care, but it was kind of a transitional period because I remember a lot of faces in the first few months, just never saw them again. So I think a lot of guys were getting out in that 2006 time. So I don't know when they joined, maybe closer to 9/11, because that'd be 6 years out, and
Yeah.
and 06, 07. But I don't really remember what we did that first weekend. A drill weekend is generally either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or just Saturday, Sunday. I think maybe once or twice a year it was Thursday through Sunday, and we'd go to a Army base in California, Camp Roberts, and do more driving, or that's where we'd have our range qualifications. But otherwise, it's usually a 2 or 3 day event, and it's really more of like a readiness. There is some hands-on job training where you're actually trying to gain some technical proficiency in being a mechanic, but I think we had 6 or 8 trucks, and however many times you can take them apart and put them back together is what we were doing. But a lot of times, you're just making sure all your Marines are alive. Everyone still has all their teeth, running PFTs, running all the little, annual tests, like the written test, or
Yeah. All the
things just to
SARP
make
training
sure
and stuff like that.
if all the PowerPoints, they would pack a lot of shit into a 2 or 3 day weekend just to make sure if the phone rang at some point, they could say, yeah, we have 60 Marines we can send to augment your unit.
Okay. So with the limited amount of like technical experience that you got. Did it concern you at all when you got called up for a deployment and you were going to be going to work on vehicles every day?
No, no, I was comfortable with what I was doing. Like you said, everything has a manual,
Yeah.
um, or some way to make it pretty simple to either diagnose what's going on or figure out how to get it out of the truck and fix it from there. So I wasn't too concerned.
What is the
So
what does the activation period look like for a reservist? Like when you get the call, like, hey man, you guys are going to be deploying. What is all that? How does that work?
So when we went, it was actually the second or third time I had asked to go.
Hmm.
There'd been a couple groups before me where it was okay, we're going to send 9 or 10 guys, and then it turned into a rotation where it was actually every other 8 months or a year we were sending people either to first or second maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we thought we were coming to do, instead of second supply. Not that it made a damn bit of difference, but
Yeah.
It's so I think we activated sometime at the end of 2008, and I think we were at the actual reserve unit for maybe a week or two,
Mm-hmm.
just making sure we had all our shit together, go to whatever appointments you need, medical, dental, anything that needs to get checked off before you're actually going. And then we went to Quantico in December for a month or 3 weeks, something like that, to do more of that shit. Kind of linked up. I think you guys weren't there, right? It was just the rest of the.
No, yeah, I think all the different reserve elements that were augmenting our unit,
right,
all linked up there. There was probably some active people up there just to, bring the unit together for some cohesiveness, but yeah, not in a mass amount.
Right. So that's where we met up with all the guys that we ended up being, from the Abilene, Texas units, and the guys from Georgia. And we did all the same shit out there. We ran more PFTs, went through more, just check ops.
Did you guys
get this and that done?
Did you guys do any combat training, like shooting? Any kind of convoy ops?
Yeah, we did those. It was cool because we got to shoot the hell out of everything. They had the Mark 19s out there, the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
240s. We'd seen, at least from my reserve unit, we'd gotten to shoot the 240s and the 50s, but we'd never got to shoot a Mark 19. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Which one's your favorite?
Did a bit of driving. The 240.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I
loved
240 is awesome.
Loved the 240.
Yeah, man.
Did some driving. We were all just like, God, this is so goddamn stupid that we're in. It's snowing in Quantico in December, and we're running a PFT, getting ready to go to Iraq
in the summer. Yeah.
In the summer.
Yeah, we were there throughout the summer. I mean, hey, that's Marine Corps, man. That's it.
Yeah. So we got out of Quantico. I don't think we were there for Christmas. I think we made it home before Christmas. So we were probably only there 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And then, I think we came back to Sacramento. And then I want to say January is when we made it out to Camp Lejeune.
That sounds about right. Because our unit had gone to 29 Palms in October or November or something like that. And while they were in 29 Palms, me and a couple other guys went down to South Carolina and did the MRAP course. That's where we, some of us had the. That's why some of us, like me, I was taking all the turrets off. I don't know if you remember that one. I had to replace every fucking turret that we had in that AO. Stuff like that. But yeah, did you guys send anybody to any of those follow-on schools, or was it just everyone was just a basic mechanic?
So we had. I'm gonna fuck the numbers up because it's been a while. I was at 3521, so that's just your 3 months in Camp Johnson,
mm-hmm.
basic mechanic. And then we had some 22s who stayed for 3 more months to do a little more intensive, engine rebuild type stuff.
Is that what a 22? I don't even remember what the numbers are anymore. I know there is a fuel engine. Yeah, they work over and rebuild all the motors for us.
And then I was going to say, there was whatever school it's even after that to be fuel and electronics or something.
Yep.
So we had guys, we had in my unit, we had slots for all of that. We had I'd never remember the number for like armors. We had, I think, 2 armors that took care of our 60 M16s and handful of, Berettas.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of different billets for any reserve unit that, they get plugs for sending people to different schools.
Yeah.
So we had some. I don't remember any of us going to MRAP school.
Yeah. There was a very limited amount of people going to it. I think there was like us 3 Marines that went, and then the rest were Army dudes. So it was a cool experience though, because I got to drive the you remember the Buffalo, the one that has the big arm on the side that engineers and EOD use. There was the one at the end of Transformers, the original Transformers movie. It's like skating down the road. I got to drive that one, and we got to work on it. Me, Matt Gay, and I think Matt Robb, and then Casey Dolman. We were all out there doing that. I actually have a picture of it. They have a Decepticon logo welded onto the back on the back door of it. So it was cool going down to South Carolina, Somerville. It was a good time. So then you guys got to Camp Lejeune, right? You guys augmented us. We all came together as one big happy unit. I think we did promotion.
The parking lot of French Creek.
I think we did promotions that morning, and then like rolled right into like a big ass formation where the unit came together, and it was like, holy shit! Like there's a lot of us out here. I was that sounds right. I just got promoted to corporal, that morning. So I was one of the newly promoted corporals, hobbling around because my legs had gotten beat up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that stuff. I only ever gave one dude blood stripes. Fucking what's his name on our deployment? I can't believe I just forgot his name. Collins. And I need him. I need him.
Ricky Lee.
Yeah, Ricky Lee. I need him once, and he almost passed out. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm never doing that again. I was like, that's fucked up, man. Like, I'm not trying to screw myself. Like, if he would have passed out, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, what are you going to do about that? Plus, like, that's fucked up, man. Making a dude pass out from pain.
Start doing CPR.
Yeah, from a knee to the leg.
I can hear, because I still talk to Ricky every once in a while. I can hear him, oh, man, Kramer, like, saying some.
I haven't talked to him in forever, man. He used to live not too far from me over on Camp Lejeune, over in Tarawa Terrace. Yeah, we'd go. Yeah,
he's out in I think he's still out in Japan, or maybe he just came back a little bit ago.
Oh, see, I didn't even know he was in Japan. Last time I talked to him, he was a recruiter, and then I knew he was going somewhere after that, but I didn't know. I honestly thought he was going to stay as a career recruiter. He's like one of those dudes, that's just like, rah, like motivated, like constantly.
Gift of gab.
Yeah, for sure.
Gift of gab.
Yeah.
If I'm right, man, he ended up being going warrant officer route.
Oh, really? Cool. A lot of jobs, a lot of MOSs in the Marine Corps, I totally recommend people that plan on making it a career. Like, dude, fuck staying in and being a master sergeant or first sergeant or something like that. Definitely go the warrant officer route, because you get that officer living, but you also get treated like an enlisted dude. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't know. It seems like the best of both worlds. As a mechanic, I totally would have done it. As an 0861, as a fire support man, I would not have done it, because it would have taken me out of being a fire support person. I would have been, I think I would have been moved over to targeting and become a targeting officer and like a survey officer. So doing stuff like that, which doesn't sound fun, fun. But
in Motor T for sure, because no one knows what the fuck you're doing. So
yeah. I mean, as a junior Marine, we had I think my platoon commander was a warrant officer. So imagine like what a platoon commander for a group of mechanics does. Like MIMS, goes over MIMS reports with people and like hangs out. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need it.
That's the way to go though, for pay and retirement for sure. So anyway, you guys come down to Camp Lejeune. I don't think we did any really training together, did we? Before we deployed? I think it was just kind of like a hangout period, and then we punched out, right? I may have lost you.
I think we.
Oh, maybe not. You're good.
Are we here? We still there?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or what, but something's kicking. I think there was, I don't know if it was, I can't remember who all was there. I thought we were all going to the shop maybe for like a week or two. I don't remember why or what we were doing. I think we were just fucking with trucks, but
Yeah.
I don't think we just got to sit down for 2 weeks and then go.
Yeah. I mean, we were doing something obviously, but I don't ever I don't remember doing anything of note, nothing that like, oh yeah. So then we ship out, man. Then it's time to go to Iraq as mechanics. So I think part of our unit had a really bad mixture. Like we never came together as like an active duty and reserve component. It always felt like a us and them kind of feeling the whole time. There were guys like you and Matt Wells and dudes like that like we got along with. You guys got it. You understand it, and like you knew how to do your work too. That was part of the problem. I think a lot of that could have been resolved had the unit like come together for like the 29 Palms or something like that and worked all those bullshit issues out at the beginning rather than during the deployment. Because what you said, like 2 weeks maybe that we had between the time we all come together and then we deploy. So as an NCO, like you really don't even know the guys that are under you. And I think we at that time, like how many corporals did we have? Like 5 million,
I felt like 50% of us were, because I was a corporal, Wells was a corporal when we got there. Like, we were all, I think everyone was a fucking corporal basically. So we had like 6 junior Marines to kick around.
Yeah. A little bit more than that, but there was quite a few corporals there. And then, I mean, we all had our own issues, or I had my own issues with the leadership, back and forth with them. Some of them I was good with, and some of them, they just, I don't know, they had an issue with me. It is what it is, but it was an interesting deployment. Like, this was it. It was like, all right, fuck, we're going to Iraq. I thought, having joined in 2006, and this is my first deployment as an active duty guy, I'm like, dude, I didn't think I was going to make it to Iraq before the war ended. I was like, dude, I'm going to be one of those dudes that joined and didn't make it, and that's what was in my mindset. That's why I can empathize with guys that are like, I never got to deploy. I never got to go to Afghanistan. I never, it's like, I get it, man. And I know you really want to go, but it's like, it is what it is. What was it like for you to like, oh shit, here we go. We're like going to Iraq, because we don't know anything. It's our first deployment. So you don't know how crazy it's going to be. So what was your thought process?
Right. Like you, I was like, it was the second or third rotation I'd volunteered for, and they were finally like, okay, yeah, here's the deployment roster. And I was like, fuck, I'm on it. Cool. Let's go. And talking to the guys who had just come back, or, some of the guys from my unit were already at TQ. So when we had that like week with the guys before us, there were other dudes from our unit already there. So, we had gotten to talk to people who'd come and gone, and, whatever stories they got to tell us. So I was just excited. I wanted to go do it every day, do it in another country. Wasn't sure what we were going to get into or not get into, but we all got to find out what we got into.
Yeah. A whole lot of nothing. The thing about on the active duty side is when they would call guys up for those deployments, they'd be like, hey, you 20 from these platoons are deploying. And then from there, they'd be like, all right, you 15 are going to be mechanics. You 5 are going over to go train with the MPs, and you're going to train to do convoy security for the entire deployment. And we were all like, fuck, let's get on the convoy security. Like, I'm trying to be in the turret, I want to be in a vehicle, because you don't want to sit on the base and do, we all know what it's like to sit there and turn wrenches. It's not fun. Like, why would I want to do that now in a desert? It's like 110 degrees outside, like, that's not fun.
Right.
And a few of my buddies got to do it. So those are the guys, we'd hear their stories. They'd come back with some cool stories, because IED is going off, or they'd take, contact or whatever. But the dudes that were mechanics were just like, yeah, it sucks. Like, it is what it is. So when I found out I was going as a mechanic, I was super bummed. And then we got over there, and I remember the first job they told me to do, they were like, hey, Kramer, you're in charge of taking that fucking motor out of that LVS. Take these 3 people with you.
That was us.
Oh, yeah. Was it you?
I have pictures of us doing it.
No way. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
If you have any, I'd
It's on that computer over there.
send them my way whenever we're done with this. Dude, that LVS motor was such a pain in the ass because not only did we have to take it out, but someone else had already started on it, so there were parts laying around. They're like, they've already done this much, so you got to finish.
We remember they had those 2 LVSs, and we were doing a swap. They were like, that one's going back to Dermo. That one needs to go back on the road, so you need to take the power pack out of one, put it in the other, and then that other truck's going away.
Yeah, to the graveyard over there.
Do you remember how we got the power pack out?
I do not. Well, with the crane or
we cut every hose, every line, just fucking removed it all so that we could put it into the good truck.
Man, I don't remember. Damn.
And then I remember because I got in a lot of trouble for making that call. Then our illustrious staff sergeant, or that great gunny we had, got the idea to, you guys got that engine in the other one quick. Let's get that other one running too. And I was like,
here's the thing.
See, that's going to be a problem because you said that one was going back to Dermo. So we just cut all the shit out of it. That's not going anywhere now. That truck will probably never run again without someone spending a fucking ton of time in there fixing it.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of how it was over there too for some of the stuff. I remember going out to that burn pit place that they had like burned out vehicles and trash. Like obviously you went since you laughed. You go out there and these people are in like full suits and masks and shit, and we're just walking around with tools, pulling parts off fucking burned up vehicles that had gotten blown up on some road in Iraq and been brought back there, and that was crazy.
Do you remember? You remember Nick Kelly?
Yeah, he was one of the recalls, right?
No, he was one of the Georgia boys.
Okay.
Big dude. He talked shit to anybody. Knew the job better than anybody. He was the one that ended up doing like 90% of the work in the shop, probably.
Probably. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Big ugly motherfucker. Great dude though. We'd end up going to that. I don't remember what the fuck they called that burn pit, but we'd end up out there all the time, and he'd start whistling the theme song to Sanford and Son.
Dude, that place is crazy. And smelling that. I remember when we first got there, just a fog of that lingering smoke from the burn pit just lingering over all of TQ. And for the people that are listening, TQ was not a rough place to be. You know, we were living in cans. They call them chews. Most people call them chews now, the containerized housing units. We had a chow hall that was really good. You know, we had a gym, we had our own gym in the shop. There was another gym, right? Wasn't there like a main gym on the base? Oh, there was.
Yeah, there was the bigger one. That's where the like computers, and like ping pong or pool tables.
I remember walking to that gym one time, and I was walking up at whatever, and this was like in July or August, so it's super hot. And this mist just hits me. And I'm like, oh, God, it feels so good. I'm like walking through this mist like, oh, God, it's so refreshing. And as I'm walking, I like come around and I see one of the TCNs, the Third Country Nationals, fucking pressure washing out a Porta-John. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm covered in Porta-John water. Oh, my God. Dude, that was disgusting. So, yeah, I do remember going to that gym now. But yeah, so TQ wasn't bad. I think for me as a mechanic, it was just every day it was turning wrenches. You knew what you were going to do. You're going to wake up, you're going to go fucking turn wrenches. It was like making the best of it, And I got my bus license so I could drive the little bus around TQ. So I used that to my advantage.
So did I.
Yeah. And remember when I got in trouble for putting the horns on the front of the bus? I don't know or it was antlers. I don't remember. Yeah, it was antlers that we found. Either way, Gunny did not approve. That's when that one kid, I don't remember his name, and you don't have to say it, but that one kid he had to go and have his like anus reconstructed because he had gotten like hemorrhoids or something and blew his own anus out. And then he was like, Kramer, you have to go with him to my punishment for putting antlers on the front of the bus was I had to go to the bathroom with this kid and sit outside the stall because every time he took a shit, he would pass out from the pain. because when they had to rebuild his asshole, it was like super tight. I'm like, and I thought it was hilarious till the first time I did it, and then I sit there and listen to a grown man cry and then pass out. I'm like, holy shit, like this is insane. But yeah, so that was my antlers on the bus story. What other jobs did you do while you were as a mechanic over in Iraq? You didn't do just floor mechanic stuff, right?
No, I feel like that wasn't even the majority of what I did. Me and Kelly were lucky enough. I feel like it was pretty early on when we were there, maybe like April. We got to go off TQ to the FOB down on the other side of the lake, Sedgwick. So I think we spent, I don't know, 10 days or 2 weeks down there. So that was kind of cool to not be under the thumb of our command every morning.
Yeah.
We were totally OFP with a small contingent of, I'm pretty sure the Marines were from 1-9 down there. And there were a bunch of like Turkish military dudes. So I don't know, for 2 weeks, it felt like we were actually in Iraq.
Yeah. Where
like TQ just feels like a shitty version of any other military base you've ever been on.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it, man. That's, I talked about it in one of the earlier podcasts, and I was saying how one of the things that bothered me the most were the guys that complained about their living conditions while we were on TQ, knowing that there are dudes out there like with no AC, living in, Iraqi houses, going on foot patrols daily, and guys talking about how their internet's not working in their can or whatever, or their AC's out, or, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck is your problem? Or, and the biggest thing that made me mad was when we would go into River City because someone had been killed, and then people would complain about the internet being down. And it's like, bro, someone fucking died, man. Like, you're so detached from reality of like where we're at. I don't know. It put a really bad taste in my mouth, and I almost didn't re-enlist, but
Yeah, we had a batch of pretty clueless motherfuckers out there.
It is what it is.
I do remember some of the complainers, some of the just the bitching about River City or mandatory fun nights. Like, why do I have to go watch? I don't even remember what country dude came out. Like, why do I have to go hang out with my dudes? I just want to sit in bed and be a piece of shit.
I forgot about that. That was Devil Goes Down to Georgia. That dude, right? That's the guy that came out there.
What?
Charlie Daniels.
Yeah.
Charlie Daniels came out to TQ, and was it Puddle of Mud or some other like some metal band came out, and we went to a concert because we got into a mosh pit. This is how our deployment was. We were at a concert in a mosh pit, and I got hit in the mouth with a rifle buttstock, and it chipped my tooth. So that was the most action I saw in 2009 in Iraq, was at the concert.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Good times. Anyway, no, it wasn't good times. Up until going on the MEU, that was definitely the worst deployment I had. And then we'll move along from this onto what you're doing now. But, like, it just, the leadership, the lack of, like, caring at all about the Marines, and you seeing the shady shit that the leadership was doing and then trying to blame on the Marines. And one example was when I know they had one of the sergeants flip data plates on a trailer from one data plate or from one trailer to another because one was fucked up and the other one wasn't. And the chief warrant officer told him to switch data plates, and then something happened and there was an investigation, and then the chief warrant officer came down and was like, whoever did this is gonna, and then like they tried to fuck us all up because that happened. And it's like, dude, you're the one that fucking said to do that. And that was kind of the shit we were dealing with as guys over there.
Yep. I remember the data plates. I remember who the Marines were that were on the hook to get burned for it.
Yeah. Those two country ass dudes.
Yeah, the Abilene boys.
Yeah. Oh, no. It was an active duty guy. Maybe it was, I thought it was that active duty country ass dude that pissed everybody off. One of the dudes that was a cross-decker who stayed there from his previous deployment. Yeah.
Oh, that little dude?
Well, him and the other one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, but you know what I'm talking about. That's the kind of shit that we had to deal with. Like they're trying to burn the Marines for something that, they told them to do. And it's just like, dude, this is fucked up. And then they tried to charge me because one of the reservist kids got in my face and like shoved me, and I fucking shoved him back. And then they were like, you're going to get charged too. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like this junior Marine like assaulted me basically, and he got his ass kicked just by me pushing him down. Like what?
I remember that. I remember that too. That kid ended up being a big problem, and we had to like find creative ways to discipline him so he couldn't complain. And
that kid was, I remember when you guys were like, dude, one of the wives had wrote or called one of your guys and was like, what is going on over there? He is writing to his girlfriend, I think. I don't think he was married. They were like, he's writing to his girlfriend and telling him that he's carrying his dead buddies' bodies off the battlefield and like all these,
that's right,
all those crazy war stories. Right. And we're like, what? As he's eating his Baskin Robbins ice cream at the chow hall, like, it was tough today.
Right. That ain't happening.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do when you're around people like that? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. It's so frustrating. So anyway, whatever. That deployment sucked. We get back from that. How was the coming home like for the reserve side? Did they make like a big deal in your hometown, like when you guys come home and stuff?
Yeah. The airport was pretty loaded up. I actually kind of got fucked on that deal. I think there were 9 of us from Sacramento going back to Sacramento, and 3 of us, I want to say, ended up being on a separate flight. So the whole receiving party of hella people that were going to be at the airport were there for the first batch. And of the 3 of us, I think 2 of them were able to get on an earlier flight. So I was the only one that came in at the end.
Oh, really? Nice.
So I think there were like 3 people from my command, my girlfriend at the time, and a handful of family members were there for me. But yeah, I think like 100 people were probably there for the first group coming in.
Nice.
No, hometown, we're all from different parts of Northern California. So,
okay.
Different kind of things.
When you got back and now you're no longer active, you've been deactivated and you're back on the reserve component side. What do you do like after the deployment? Do you just roll right back into drills, like coming in, your 1 weekend a month and all that? Or is there anything follow on deployment that you guys do specifically?
So we got back in September, and our orders were through January. So we stayed on, came to our reserve unit every day, whatever random tasks or odd jobs, or if there was a different part in California that we needed to go pick up, they'd send 2 of us to, go pick up a part or a tool or whatever. We were basically bitches for.
So you just come back and just hang out around the office until your active duty orders have expired?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we stayed pretty well employed. I don't remember now what we were doing. A lot of working out,
so
whatever post-deployment health meetings you need to do just to transition out.
And that was, so my next question was going to be, I think it's different for active duty guys that come back from a deployment because they come back and they're still in that military environment. So if like, let's say we obviously didn't get any combat or anything, we got mortared a few times while we were over there. But, if you were someone that had seen combat, I think it would be easier to come back and be with a unit. Like, it's consistent. I have the same guys. I can talk to these people, rather when you come back from the reserves and you come back and you're no longer active duty and you're no longer coming in every day and being around military people every day. What kind of like culture shock is that for you to go from like being around military dudes every day to now I'm back in my regular job being regular Joe? Like, Joe's back from the war. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey, there's a cake in the break room. I think that's probably why they do it the way they did it, to where, mid-September we're back, and then for the next 3 months we're still coming in every day. We're still with the people that we were with. It was still, me and Wells and Jimenez, and then the guys that were from Sacramento that ended up in GSM, the other platoon out there.
Yeah.
We were still with each other every day for like 3 months. So I think that made it a much easier transition. I think if they'd just been like, all right, we're at the airport. Welcome back. We'll see you next month on a Saturday to do a PFT, and you're back in the reserve. I think that probably would have been like kind of hitting a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what so like again, I don't know really much about the reserve side, so I didn't know if they had
Right.
built something in like that. That's good though, because like I said, I think that's the best way for guys to decompress is just to be around like-minded, individuals or people with similar experiences and stuff. So at what point did you become a police officer? Were you a police officer before? You weren't a police officer before you deployed, right?
No, no, I was, fuck was I? I was doing background investigating or background screening before I deployed. Kind of went back to that for a little while, for like maybe 2 months, maybe not even 2 months. And the two big things we missed while we were in Iraq was, Michael Jackson died
Hmm.
and the economy died with him.
Oh yeah.
The whole housing thing was going on,
Yeah.
the financial meltdown of 2009. So I kind of came back, and the job I had, they were in pretty deep shit financially. So I think I'd been back to work for like 2 months, like maybe February. I got laid off. Pretty quickly found a better job, ended up doing armed security it was a DoD contract with a private security group for a rocket manufacturing facility in Rancho Cordova, so up above Sacramento again, kind of close to my hometown. So it was great. It was me and then a bunch of vets. Like we had Army dudes, we had Marines. There might have been an airman or two sprinkled in there, but it was a pretty good gig. It was just driving around a big ass rocket manufacturing facility and seeing some goofy shit. You had to have a secret clearance to work there.
Yeah.
So
Did you guys ever have any kind of
they
incidents where people are trying to get into the rockets?
No, I don't think they've ever had an incident. I mean, I think the biggest problems we ever had were rattlesnakes and homeless people wandering around the gates and shit like that. But no cool incidents.
Yeah.
It was,
Before we move on to like you being a police officer and stuff like that, I would like you to. Is there any advice that you have for somebody that may be considering going into the reserves, either from the get go or from active duty?
yeah, I think it'd be important to understand what you want to get out of the military. If it's something you want to do potentially forever, or what you're trying to get out of the career. If you just want some military experience, some college money, some life experience, but you don't think you want to do it every day because you want to go to college too, then I think the reserves is fine. I think that's a good thing that you're going to get to be able to accomplish in the reserve. It's been very beneficial in my life. Now that I did move on into law enforcement and trying to progress in the career of law enforcement, hopefully one day promote and continue to, grow in the career field. Military experience is huge. And even reserve experience is, once you're out amongst nothing but civilians, it's still something. Definitely don't want to take away from what those guys do, because a lot of them, I remember even over there, they knew the job better. They were just solid dudes.
Yeah.
But if you truly want that, I want to be in the military, I think this is for me. I don't give a shit about going to school, and I'm not trying to stay in my hometown. Don't do the reserve. And, that was actually something that one of the recruiters told me that was, not my direct recruiter, but in the office was, Nick, you're way too moto to try and do this once a month. You should probably do active duty. And I was like, no, it's cool. I'm going to go to college and then I'll come back as an officer active duty. And
Yeah.
that almost came to be.
Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking about the transition from, getting out and or getting off active duty and working towards law enforcement, was we got our orders ended January of 2010. And in California, there were like 2 agencies in the entire state, police agencies, hiring, period.
Really?
Everywhere else had closed recruitment. They'd, frozen academies because no one had any money.
Yeah.
So my options were like LAPD or CHP. And luckily, we'd talked about Matt earlier, who's now my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He was CHP, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go for CHP, and ended up, kind of going to work at that security place while testing with the CHP. Did great testing, got high on lists. Things were going along, but it was going super slow because they had no money, so they were stretching where they could, limiting academies, and they ended up closing their academy.
Oh, really?
For a period of time. So people that were on the list, they were just expiring, kind of dying on the shelf. So I had to go.
Do you want to explain what you're talking about? Like, you're on a list for people that aren't kind of aware. Kind of maybe talk through what the hiring process for the CHP or.
Yeah, of course. For the CHP, they have they're like the largest agency in the state, so they have their shit together when it comes to running testing programs and recruiting. So I actually applied while we were still in Iraq, filled out, my online application, and based on where in the state you were was, you could even see, you could forecast when the test date was going to be for that area. So, I knew we were going to be off, like short of getting extended, in which case my application would just gone in the trash. I knew I'd be able to test in December or January. I can't remember when I tested with them, but the initial day you get there, you're going to do a physical, you're going to do a written. And by physical, I mean like the agility. Can you run? Can you do a pull up? Can you, perform physically?
Yeah.
A pretty lengthy written, a pre-background screening. So you kind of got to fill out the tattletale shit. Like, yes, I've done mushrooms, but it was a long time ago. So I can still,
I'm not crazy. So
people
it's okay.
People admit the craziest shit on those background forms, thinking it's still going to be okay to be a cop.
Oh, and you used to do investigations too. So you kind of knew what they were looking for, huh?
Right. The investigations I did were not law enforcement related. I think one of the contracts we had was for a corrections department in another state, but we did nurses, bankers, goofy stuff like that. But even so, just in talking to people either trying to get into law enforcement or people that have tried and failed, they're like, well, yeah, I admitted to using cocaine, 6 times in high school or whenever, and
that's
certain things are lifetime disqualifiers. You can't commit felonies and later try and be a cop. So if you're wanting to be a cop, don't go out and do felonies.
That's good advice.
So, and then if you pass the physical, you take the written. If you pass the written, you do like an actual medical screening. So they check your ears, they check your eyes, maybe a few other things. And then they sign you up like right there. If you pass all those, they're like, cool, you're going to have an oral board interview on this day at this place. So you go to that. Oral board's an oral board, what have you done to prepare? Why should we pick you? What do you think a career in the CHP means, or a career in whatever agency you end up with?
Yeah.
Get through that. If you pass wherever their cutting score is, if you have to score a 90 to move on to the next step, if you're above that, you get on a list. So then you're like, it's just an eligibility list. You're eligible for hire. Let's move you into the background process.
Okay.
And that's, by then they probably, I'd have to make up the number, but the amount of people that were cut from that morning, I want to say 400 of us showed up for the physical. Maybe 150, 200 made it to the written. Maybe 100 of us made it through that, or even less, to get to the next step. And then that's the last time you see the whole group. But past the oral board interviews, I don't know how many actually made the background package.
Yeah.
Funnel is tapered pretty deep by then.
Yeah, I think. Can you hear me?
All right, maybe I'll have a little better connection over here. I'm closer to the router.
Cool. No worries. I'll just cut that part out, that gap out. So we were talking about the hiring process.
Right.
So once you get on the list, though, you can move up and down the list, right? Depending on like your different scores and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it moves after the list is established, but you land in different positions based on, whatever scores came to be. So the score I got from my oral board for the CHP was 100%. And for being a veteran, you get 5 points. So benefits to the veterans. So I came out with a score of 105. So I was as high on the list as you can be, probably tied with some other vets, but I was looking pretty good.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's like actually kind of a lengthy screening process, and this is all before you've even gone to the police academy, correct?
Oh, this is long before you're even given an offer, like a hiring letter.
So what would you say to someone that may be saying, "Hey, we need to do more to screen the police"? Like, do you think there's like what could be added to this process that would make screening better? I guess for whatever reason.
I don't know. My experience, with the CHP, I want to say I was in their process for 14 months. And then for the other agencies I've actually gotten hired by, because I didn't get hired by the CHP, mostly back to them closing the academy. And then the list, once they create a list, it has an expiration date. So if you don't get hired off of that list by the expiration date, you have to start over.
Okay.
So that never came to be. So, but even for the agencies I've worked for, man, they dig into you. I don't know if it's maybe California. I don't know how they do it in other states. California digs, man. They're going to go knock on, you tell them everywhere you've ever lived. They're going to be knocking on your neighbor's door where you lived when you were 12 years old.
Oh,
and
really?
They're going to be asking that neighbor, like, you remember little Nick? What was he like when he was in junior high school? I really,
that's pretty thorough.
I have buddies that have gone the Fed route, and it's the same. They dig into your they dig into your social media. They dig into your friends of friends. They want to know everything about you. There's no secrets.
That feels like what it was like for someone to get like a TS clearance, on active duty, something that thorough where they're actually going through and, you're taking a polygraph, right? Do you guys do poly for CHP and for all the California departments? So you're taking a polygraph.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's either poly or they do the CVSA, the computer voice stress analysis. Similar thing, different technology.
Huh. I've never even heard of that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So you didn't get hired by CHP. Your list expired. How long does it take for a list to expire? Probably like 18 months or something.
It's something like that.
Yeah. But you decided to continue pushing on to, I just want to be Leo. At this point, I just want to.
So this is where it actually came down to if I was going to go back in the Marines as an officer, if I was going to go for a commission, or if I was going to keep trying to get hired. Now we're in 2011, and I was like 3 classes away from having my bachelor's degree. And she was now my fiance. We're married now. I was like, hey, I'm going to try with another agency here in California. And I'd also looked at Colorado and Texas. Wasn't too huge on the ideas of moving out there at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Kick me now. Wish I would have. But it was, hey, if I don't get hired, then I'm going to go back for a commission and we'll live that life.
Yeah. Which isn't bad.
And then ended up getting hired. No. Before I'd met her and before, the experiences I'd had on the reserve side, that was my plan anyways, was finish school and get it going that way. By then I'd realized I was too stupid to go to flight school and be helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. But no, ended up getting hired 2011 and going to an academy here in the Bay Area.
Was the hiring process for that department similar to the CHPs?
It was the exact same.
Okay.
It was a lot quicker. I think, funding had started coming back in 2011. And they'd realized what a deficit they were at from most places not hiring for, a year to 18 months. So it was quicker. And it was just quicker between appointments. It wasn't, today's your interview, 2 weeks we're going to do this, 2 weeks we're going to do that. It was like, you need to be going every day. Someone's going to call you. Something's going to happen.
Really?
We're moving. So I think that process, maybe 6 months, 5-6 months for that hiring process. And I think that's about average. I think they can do it quicker if they really need to. But I think if you're looking to be a cop, that's about what you're looking at in a hiring process.
Yeah.
In California.
And so was it at that point that you had decided to get out of the reserves?
I got out of the reserves the day before the academy started.
Okay.
I'd kept drilling into the IRR, the individual
ready reserves,
whatever.
Yeah.
I just kept going to the weekends. It was still fine. It was easy. By then I was a platoon sergeant. Mm-hmm. Wells was a platoon sergeant, and my other buddy Chris was a platoon sergeant, and he and I ended up getting hired together as cops. So we left on the same day. It was check out Sunday, start the academy Monday.
Yeah, David Armstrong was on the last podcast, and he was a active duty artillery officer that came back and did some reserve time as a officer, a reservist officer, and he was saying that once you fulfilled your 4 years of obligated service, you're kind of an at-will employee. Like, you can come in, keep drilling on the IRR as much as you want or as little as you want. And it's just such a weird, thinking oh, well, I'll just go in this weekend and make a couple $100 or whatever. And, and then just, all right, I'm done. I don't know. But yeah. That's interesting that you guys can do that. And it gives you way more flexibility for jobs, which is really cool.
Yeah, totally different world. And even then I'd considered re-enlisting and lap moving within the reserve. It was, was definitely sick of being a mechanic, but I think I was actually dealing with a prior service recruiter would have been the guy I was dealing with to do a lap move. And he was, I don't remember his name. He was shady. he was talking about, he's like, yeah, you're going to want to do this job. And I was like, no, it's not at all what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And he's like, oh, well, if you re-enlist in your current field, I can get you over there. I was like, no, I'm not that stupid. I already did that once.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude, that was my, and so back to Iraq, that was my mindset. I enjoyed the Marines. I enjoyed the people that were in the Marine Corps for the most part. And I enjoyed coming to work. I just didn't like being a mechanic. I didn't feel like I was in the Marines when I was a mechanic. I felt like too many people had fake motivation, and it was, it's hard to see the benefit of you doing your job when all you're doing is sitting in a shop, turning wrenches all day. You're never out in the vehicle, driving it and doing the missions and stuff like that. You're just a guy in the back fixing shit. And I was kind of the same way, when I came up for my lap move. Teddy had mentioned doing fire support man, the 0861. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, let's fucking sign up for that. Let's do that. And because I was one of the jobs I'd originally considered before I came in. And my recruiter said I couldn't get because I think it was because I'd gotten arrested. And so I don't think I was eligible for security clearance at the time. And so I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then, obviously that ended up working out and stuff. But yeah, and I try to tell a lot of people that are on their first term active guys, hey man, if you don't like your job but you like the Marines, really consider a lap move. And also the second enlistment, when you're a corporal to sergeant, maybe staff sergeant in that second enlistment, is completely different than the first one, because now you have actual say-so of what's your day-to-day life is like. It's not like you're a Lance Corporal taking out the trash or PFC mopping. Those days are over. Now you're expected to be in charge and be proficient in your MOS and stuff like that. So Yeah, I get it. I get the like, hey, I want a lat move or I'm not doing this kind of deal. I mean, completely understandable. Um, what was the police academy like for the department you joined?
It was every day. It was not a live-in. I know the CHP, and I think maybe I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure LAPD they have actual like squad bays and barracks where you're there full time. So it was I don't know, 7 to 4, 7 to 5 every day.
Oh,
Did I lose you again?
I still have you. I don't know what happened. My camera just shut off. Give me just a second. We're back. All right. So police academy, you were doing a non-live-in thing. So was it at like a community college or something like that? Because I know some places do stuff like that.
So it was its own facilities, but it's accredited through a junior college. It used to be on the actual junior college campus, but they got their own facilities to where we weren't mixing with all the college kids in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. When you when you finished with the police academy, did you feel like you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, you do your police academy, how long was that for you?
Right around 6 months. I don't remember if it was 26 weeks or something like that.
And then after you finish that, you do your officer training, right? When you go out and work with another officer?
Right. So I actually was originally hired by a sheriff's office that started with custody. So kind of a soft landing out of the academy. You're not, immediately worried about, going out to patrol and having the FTO experience. And, a lot of people even make it through this hiring process, through the academy, get to FTO and, for one reason or another, they're not a good fit for the agency. So they end up, leaving the career field at that point. So kind of a little softer landing at a sheriff's office when you're going to go into a custody setting. Mm-hmm. The success rate's a little higher, I guess that would be the best way to put it. So I did that for right about 2 years. I was with my original agency before I made a lateral move to another agency just right across the street, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that before. The sheriff's departments have to go work in the jails for a little while before they like get out on the streets. Some places are like a year. I think in California or LA County, I think it's like 2 years before you can go work the streets or whatever. What was it like for you, like working in a jail setting? Like, was that like, oh shit? Like, I don't know. I just can't imagine that kind of environment because I've never really been in it. Can you hear me? Is this my internet?
Are we back?
Oh, I got you. I don't know what's going on with the internet, man. I don't know if it might be me too. This internet here is garbage. I gotta upgrade to the wire or to the fiber if it's me. Anyway.
Okay.
So you were in the jail for. I asked about the working in the jail. What was it like? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So it was a new experience, man. I never really had like a shithead phase growing up, or like didn't hang out with dudes that were getting arrested, or really, any childhood experience, negative interactions with the cops or dealing with the criminal elements. So it was new for me, man. It was definitely just a new experience when you're, meeting people for the first time that are potentially facing life sentences, or, they're looking at being in prison for the next 50 years and just trying to figure out how to carry on those interactions in an authoritarian position over them. You gotta still maintain, peace and quiet in the jail, or some form of regulation.
Yeah. So I've heard people say that working in the jails before working on the streets as an officer is like bad for police. It like gives them like a negative connotation of how they deal with or interact with, the people they interact with as officers. What would you say to that? Because it seems like I don't necessarily feel like. I mean, me personally, I don't necessarily believe that. I feel like if anything, it would give you better ability to know when someone's bullshitting you or something like that. You know?
Yeah, no, I'd say the exact opposite, man. I think it's the most beneficial thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's the experience you get it, and it's I don't know. I've heard it described a bunch of different ways, and the best way I could describe it is, you're kind of in a sterile environment.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the jail. You're dealing with people. You have other, deputies with you. You're it's definitely not a safe environment, but you're not out on the street, and the repetitions you're getting talking to and working around these people. It's just such a valuable experience. You learn how to talk to people. You learn to see right through bullshit. For a lot of dudes, it was the first time they'd ever been in a fight, because, a lot of people that realize they got nothing to lose are down to fight the cops in custody. You get to do a lot of things before you're out on the street, and it's, your first time seeing this, or I've never dealt with someone that's high on methamphetamine, or I've never dealt with someone that's, it's been 2 days since they've used heroin, so now they're in badass withdrawals. So you learn to see a lot of things that you're not going to see as a normal, everyday citizen. You're not going to deal with those problems. So by the time you get out to the street, I feel like you're at a pretty good advantage by the time you're going to be a patrol cop. I think custody was a great experience.
Yeah. When you when you switch over to the other department and you started doing your actual, I assume you did PTO at that point?
The FTO, so the field training
FTO.
Officer. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I said PTO. FTO. What did that involve, and how long did that last?
So it's a 4-month program. You go through, a primary FTO. That's kind of your first time out on patrol. This is your main trainer. So that's a month, and then you go through phases, is what it's called. So first phase, second phase, third phase, just 3 different months, 3 different people. And then for your 4th phase, and that's kind of like the first 2 weeks, they want to see that you've learned everything and experienced everything you should have in the first 3 months. And then the second 2 weeks are generally considered like a shadow, where you're going to go handle things as though you are a solo police officer, and they're just there to basically observe you at that point.
What, during all your training up to this point, police academy and going through and working at the jails and then FTO, what was the most valuable thing that you think you picked up or you learned during all that? Or was there any one eye-opening thing, oh shit, I never realized this until now I'm a cop and I get it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge experience. So you're going to go through a lot of things, and you're going to pick up a ton of stuff. Yeah. A most profound experience or most profound lesson learned. I think the biggest things I learned through custody that I was able to bring to the street is just officer safety, being able to read the signs in people that this situation's about to probably turn violent. This situation's not going to go the way you hope it goes, because no one's out there going man, I really hope this all turns to shit and we get into a fist fight. That's never good. No one's looking for that. So I think learning the tells and kind of seeing body language and learning aggressive postures and being able to see it before it hits the wall.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know you were a canine cop for a while. How long were you just a regular dude, or did you roll right into being a canine cop, or did you do some time on the streets before you got to do that?
Yeah, no. A new guy, they're not just going to give him a dog. That's a pretty huge responsibility, and on top of that, it's an enormous liability, because now you're in charge of something with its own brain. Yeah. That's going to
that's a good way to put it.
Be trained to. It's anything, any other tool you have, you're baton, taser, pepper spray, handgun, whatever, you're still in charge of that via your own brain. But yeah, canine's got its own thought process, its own desires, its own wants and needs. So it's a huge, huge undertaking. So they want to make sure that you're not going to be, some crazy dude on patrol doing, the wrong thing. And then now you have a dog and you're still doing the wrong thing. You're going to cause problems. So I did, about 2 years, 18 months, 2 years at my agency before there were canine openings. And I'd already been showing interest in kind of going out to training to learn what it's like to actually have a dog. So right around the 2-year mark, 18-month mark was when I got my dog. And I worked him for 4.5 years. Recently retired him last fall.
Do you still have him?
Yeah, he's the dog that was barking earlier in the show in the backyard.
You son of a bitch. That's funny. It's funny because
he'll hear a fire truck or something drive by, and he'll
recall his old days, hearing the sirens.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Was that the only dog that you worked with?
Yeah, he was just my one and done. A lot of guys, they like to do it, man. They love it. I loved being a canine handler, but there's a lot of things I want to get done in my career.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to stay, but there's guys who have literally made, once they get the dog, they work it until, it's the right age to let that dog retire, get a new dog, work it till, 6-8 years down the road and just stay in it and retire out of that program.
That's cool that they commit to the time frame for the dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, I'll do one more because I know he's going to go for 4 or 5 years, whatever, and then I'm done with it. Like, that's pretty cool that you kind of think about it like that. And it would probably be interesting to switch from one dog to another, and there's probably some growing pains since every dog is different. And, like you said, everyone has their own brain and their own kind of thought processes. And then I'm sure every dog has their own little quirks that you have to kind of deal with. Was there anything in particular that you have to deal with your dog?
I lucked out. Anybody in my canine unit, anybody in the organization would have told you I've had like a unicorn of a dog. He was a little older when he came to us. His name's Biko. He had just turned 4. He was maybe 4 and a couple months when we got him, where a typical police dog's probably, between 24 and 36 months, 2 to 3 years old. They're typically coming in. So Biko, he was a little older. He had done a ton of work. He was from Holland. So
what kind of dog?
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Okay. Pretty standard, right?
It's very standard. It's a great breed. Great for the work. They're a little more compact than the Shepherds, but a little more heat resilient. But he was just so well rounded. He was so well trained from his original trainer over in Holland. I did not have a ton to overcome. Dogs are still a little stubborn. They still have little things here and there, but everyone just felt like he got it. He knew the job. He knew what he was doing. He was good at it. Loved it. Yeah.
So with a dog, like having that, you have the dog with you, right? What is like the line that gets crossed where you're like, all right, I'm letting the dog loose. Like there's got to be like de-escalation points up into that to make it where like, all right, now we got to release the dog.
Absolutely. And it's all based on case law. So, things that have already happened, already been adjudicated, already been ruled on by Supreme Courts or high-level courts across the country, and
precedents
various
set.
district. Yeah, precedents are set, and then each agency is going to have individual policies, standard operating procedures, and based into your training. There's almost no question when the time comes, that those requirements, those check boxes, everything's been fulfilled long before that dog comes into play.
Okay.
And that's because historically those policies, those precedents, those case laws didn't exist. If you start looking into canine policy, you'll see that a ton of them come out of Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was just, bad decisions, bad policies, whatever it is that makes policy and case law. It's someone else already did this and it was determined either to be the right thing or the wrong thing, and now it's in policy. So
I mean, that makes sense. That's what you want to hear, though, that we're realizing mistakes were made and now we're adjusting. I think that's what the general public nowadays are asking for. Maybe not. They're way more extreme than that, but you know what I'm saying? Like they want to know that realizations of mistakes made on the job are being identified and then being applied to future law enforcement usage. So that's cool that that's kind of the thought process. How often did you actually have to employ the dog?
I mean, it could be every day because these dogs are so versatile. One of the major things dogs do that people don't really think about, at least I wouldn't have as a normal civilian, is trailing or tracking, where they're just going to follow human odor to a source. And we use that all the time to find missing people, you know? So.
Oh, same dogs then.
Yeah. Same dogs.
Oh, okay.
Or, my dog was trained in narcotics detection. We didn't have any bomb dogs in our unit, so they were all cross-trained for narcotics. So,
what was his biggest bust?
High school sniffing for most amount he found, I want to say it was like a kilo of fresh coke on a search warrant we did for the DEA.
Wow.
So a couple pounds of coke, couple $100,000 here and there just involved in drugs. So he had a couple good wins. We didn't get to take down any like freighter ships with,
shipping
containers full of meth or anything like that. Nothing that sexy.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. Yeah, man. So what if there are people out there? Because I think being a canine officer interests a lot of people. I think a lot of people that at least I worked with, like in Afghanistan and stuff, you'd see the guys out there with the dogs, or actual dog handlers. And it's just like, man, that'd be a cool fucking job, and I think that causes some people to want to get out and join the, the police force and get on that. What advice would you have for somebody that's looking to get into like the canine kind of line of work within the law enforcement community?
Yeah. So the best way to go about it, if you're already in the agency that you want to work for and that you want to go be a canine handler with, seek out those canine handlers. At my agency, we train canines every single Thursday. So, if you're not working, if your schedule allows that you're not there, hey, let me come out and see training. Let me, put on the bite suit. Let me hide in a tree. Let me, do whatever so that you can start seeing what it is to actually work with the dogs. Because on patrol, it's not, every day, 10 times a day, people are getting to see your dog in action. It's, it happens, but you get a much more concentrated experience if you're actually going out to the training. So try and get involved in the training aspect of things. Some agencies train every week, some agencies every other week. It's, it's rare to see people train less than that, at least in my experience.
Those are skills that have to constantly be sharpened with the dog, correct?
Yeah. In our agency's policy, if you miss 2 trainings, you can miss 2, but if you miss a third, you have to recertify altogether, which is a pretty big undertaking.
Okay.
So just get involved in the training, see it, try and when you're actually on patrol, if you hear canines doing, I'm going to run this trail, or I'm going to be over here doing a sniff, try and be there, try and see it, just expose yourself to as much of it as you can. That way you can make sure it's something you really want. Cause a lot of agencies, when you get the dog, that's your dog. He's with you 24/7. He comes home with you. You're responsible for him. It's a little different than having just a pet sit at home. You're deeply involved. So you're going to be busy. It's a lot bigger of a commitment than a lot of people think.
Yeah. I think I've heard that a lot from people that, I've heard people go, or I know people that have gone and bought trained dogs like those, and not fully understanding the amount of follow-on training that is expected of them to maintain the quality of dog that they initially had. And then a lot of them end up getting rid of them. You know, they're like, you know what, this is too much time, or it's a little more aggressive than I'd like, you know, because it's, you know, that's just how it is. It's trained like that or whatever. But yeah, man. Weird question, maybe. I don't know if it is weird or not, but so cops all wear body cams now. Not all, but a lot of them wear body cams now. Do they put them on dogs?
No, or at least not ours. I've never seen an agency do that where a dog would have it. It'd be probably pretty distracting and probably pretty hard to try and get any sort of quality footage. Because I mean, we've all seen them on the internet where there's, you know, a foot chase where an officer's running,
yeah,
and it's just everywhere. So that's all you're going to see from a dog's body cam would be, my opinion. I've never really even heard anyone float the idea. That'd be an interesting thing to see.
Get the bite cam going.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, you know, you see it where people put a GoPro on some harness on their dog's back, and
yeah,
I've never enjoyed any of those videos. You just,
yeah, we used to do some, I mean, not me personally, but we would have like our MPs come out and do some stuff with us with their dogs. I know we had them come out and rappel, had them come out and fast rope out of Huey's and do some stuff like that. And I always thought that was pretty interesting. And it was funny because some of the dogs, it was like known, like, hey, these two dogs, we got to put the muzzle on because they're going to bite us if we, you know, if we're trying to rappel with this dog. This dog will just hang here and be super chill about it. How many dogs did you run into like that where you're like, shit, this one might just bite me just because he's an asshole?
They're out there, man. My dog, it was never a concern.
Yeah.
The only time he's in a muzzle is the vet, because he's pretty sensitive about his backside. So it's like a reflexive bite. When that thermometer starts making its way, he ain't having it.
Yeah, I get that.
Other than that, it was never my dog. But I have had partners and dogs that they're like, nah, this is going to be sketch. You know, if you got to put the dog on your back and carry it somewhere, or, you know, if you're trying to lift your dog to do some goofy deployment, they're like, nah, my dog will bite me. So yeah, you see it, and it is always the one or two, you know, because we did some, you know, helicopter training, not that we were ever going to utilize it real life, but it was just fun to do the training. Never did rappelling with the dog. That'd be that'd be crazy.
Yeah, you could tell the dog was like, "What the fuck are we doing? Like, what are you doing right now, human?"
Just hanging.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're short on time. I know you said about 2 hours, and I think we're coming up on that. My timer got reset when we had to reset the call, so I think we're getting close to that. Do you want to talk any more about what you're doing now, or anything else about the reserves before I let you go?
I don't know, man. I tried to think, you know, what we could talk about with the reserve, because I don't want to paint it in a negative light. It's for a lot of people. I know a lot of guys that loved it. They liked that they still had their military. They still had the uniform. They still had the potential to go deploy. They could still sign up to do cool stuff. And I don't want to say I didn't do any cool stuff. I mean, I got to spend, you know, every year you're going to go on annual training. It's usually about 2 weeks, you know, sometimes maybe a little longer. You know, I got to go to a cool remote island in Alaska for 2 weeks and work on trucks that I'd never been trained on.
Hell yeah.
So that was cool as shit. We got to do a lot of salmon fishing in our off time and just hike around this dope ass island.
Nice. I didn't know you got to do that.
Out in Alaska. So that was cool. Got to go on an annual training in Boston with a reserve infantry unit. So we were just working on trucks, but it was like we were just doing mods. So we weren't repairing anything. We were just putting like either new exhaust or new armor or some cool upgrades, different shocks on these trucks. But, you know, we were getting to go into Boston and party.
TAD trips are that's the best part of the military, is going TAD and getting to go do cool stuff.
Right. So that's really, and you know, we got to go to Norway. I know a lot of guys that got to go to Norway a couple times, but I got to go to Norway where we have like caves full of equipment, and basically you just go road test trucks for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's actually
through the
Norway's like a bigger rotation now. That is one thing I'm glad you brought that up though. reserve components do get to do some way different like experiences than active duty guys. Like I've gotten to go to Alaska. I got to do that as well. Not the where you were at. I was up by Fairbanks, but like the Norway trip, I knew one of the guys. I remember one of the guys. I don't know if he was with your unit or one of the different reserve units, but he said he was in Georgia, in the country of Georgia, when the Russians like invaded. He was out there doing his annual training or something like that. Stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Who was that? Yeah. It wasn't. It was a. I think that was a guy from the state of Georgia in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like the year before our deployment. I was like, dude, that's crazy. Like they didn't have rifles or anything, but anyway. But so that I'm glad you brought that up because the reserve component does get to do some interesting things. Like when we go to Okinawa, it's like a 6-month or 7-month deployment, or you're stationed there. Whereas I know some of the reservists get opportunities to go for like 2 weeks and then come back. I also paint a negative picture of reservists a lot on the podcast. Not a lot, but sometimes just because of some of the dudes we worked with. But I don't want people, again, like you said, I don't want to dissuade people from going into the reserves because there's definitely solid people. And just like every other job, it all depends on the personalities that you work with and how serious they take the job and stuff like that. And I thought guys like you and Wells and, some of the other reservists that I met were great dudes. And like, I'm glad we're still in contact and stuff like that. And let's be honest, there's some shitty active duty guys too. There's some active duty guys that don't know their job or they're just, scumbags. It's not just, like I said, I don't like the us versus them mentality, but,
right.
Yeah, man. Well,
and I remember that, the us versus them, it was strong. But I think some of us broke the barrier. Like you're saying, me, Wells. I know there were a handful of us that I don't know if it felt like a prove up or something, but it was like, okay, well, I know the job. I carry myself as I should. I'm in shape. I probably, could out PT half the guys in our active duty squad. And I get it, like you said, so I think once, it would have been much more beneficial if we'd gone on the 29 Palms with you guys. But I think it didn't take too long for some of us to figure out like a good group and this group stayed over here kind of thing. But for anyone considering the reserve, it's not a bad gig if that's what you're looking for. It wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted the full-time experience. I wanted to go do it. Having done it, it wasn't a bad time. Like we talked about, got to go do some cool stuff. Still got to go see a deployment. Got to experience that. And
you get all the benefits. You get all the same benefits that I get, Yeah.
Still benefits on the back end. GI Bill based on your active service. So if you go on a deployment or two, you're going to get the same exact GI Bill.
I like how you pointed out at the beginning too that the reserves and the military in general is great for life experience, and I feel like not enough people, I think guys that are in don't appreciate the life experiences that they're getting. When you're traveling around to different countries or even different states and stuff. But then you think back and look at the people you went to high school with or stuff, and they're all in the same hometown. Some of them never left. Some of them leave once a year for that, annual vacation they go to every summer. And that's the only time they ever leave. Whereas, I don't even know. I think I've been to 15 countries or maybe more, and like it gives you a different perspective of how good we have it here in the United States and how we could improve it. You see goods and bads in other places. And I also think it gives you a better perspective of the people that are in your own country because every region of the country is different. And the great thing about the military, especially the active duty side, you probably don't really experience it until you hooked up with us, but you have people from all over the country in your unit from every different background, rich kids that decided to join the military, poor kids that decided to join the military. My first platoon sergeant was an infantryman. And when I got attached to, or not my first, one of my first, when I got attached to go work on the EFSS program, he was a sergeant, and this dude had a master's degree he had a bachelor's degree in electric engineering. And he was like, yeah, just life was boring. I decided, you know what? There's a war going on. I'm going to join the Marine Corps infantry and go do it. And just being exposed to all these different people from all over the country and the different thought processes of people in the South compared to people to the Northwest and the, the Midwest and stuff like that is invaluable. And I think makes you a more well-rounded person. And I think it gives you a better appreciation of the country you live in. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I would totally echo that sentiment right there, that you're only going to have benefit out of the experience, whether it's the full benefit you want in the reserve. You're still going to get a flavor of all that, just through the time and the places you're going to go. So to anyone thinking about joining the reserve, make sure it's what you want. Make sure you're actually going to try and go to school or do whatever your plan is to actually fill your time when you're not fulfilling your military obligation. And if you decide that I'm not interested in X, Y, or Z, then go active duty. Just go that route if you want to be in the military.
Yeah, go do 4 years, man. I mean, if you join when you're 18, you do 4 years, you get out when you're 22. Let's say you just decide to go to college. You're 22 going to college. That's not a big deal. I'm 35 or 36 going to fucking college right now, Yeah. Some people see that as a setback, but I see it as like you just gained a lot of life experience and now you're going to school and you'll probably be a better student because you have a better understanding of the world around you already, Yeah,
you'd be light years ahead of your peers. Even the dudes that got out of college and got into some, whatever job they thought was going to be the shit, you're still going to be way ahead of them.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll cut it here. And I appreciate you coming on. It was good catching up. You're the first person that has been on. This is episode 61. You're the first person that's come on that knew me as a mechanic in the Marine Corps besides Chris Harper. And we don't really talk about it too much. We didn't talk about being a mechanic too much. But you're the only person that's deployed with me as a mechanic. So it was kind of funny catching up, hearing some of the names I might have forgotten and some of the stories and stuff, and remembering our shitty 09 in Iraq and the wonderful dust storms.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember those coming in, but man, some of those heavy dust storms. But
yeah, buddy.
Yeah, but anyway, you have an open invitation to come on anytime you want. You can come on and bullshit. Maybe we'll catch up and see what you're up to in the future. But again, thanks for coming on.
Man, let's do it.
For sure. Tell Matt and some of the other people that we deployed with, I said what's up, and I hope everyone's doing well.
I will, bro. All right, take care.
Hey, have a good day. Bye.
Later.